Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the saga of one of history's most legendary figures, a king whose name evokes images of chivalry, crusades and sheer battlefield prowess. We're talking about none other than Richard I of England, better known as Richard the Lionheart. But was he the heroic English king that legend paints him to be, or is the reality far more complex? Stick around as we unravel the man behind the myth. Born in 1157, Richard wasn't even initially destined for the English throne. He was the third son of the formidable Henry II and the brilliant Eleanor of Aquitaine. His early life was spent not in England, but in his mother's Duchy of Aquitaine in modern-day France. This is a crucial point. Richard was, by upbringing, culture and language, fundamentally French. He barely spoke English and would spend only a few months of his entire 10-year reign actually on English soil. His heart belonged to his continental possessions. From a young age, Richard proved to be a gifted military commander and a formidable warrior. He was also deeply involved in the notoriously turbulent politics of his family, the Plantagenets. He and his brothers frequently rebelled against their own father, Henry II, often with the encouragement of their mother, Eleanor. It was a classic medieval power struggle, a sprawling family drama played out across England and France. Through a series of conflicts and the deaths of his elder brothers, Richard eventually became the heir apparent. When Henry II died in 1189, Richard was crowned King of England. But Richard's mind wasn't on governing England. His primary ambition, his life's great project, was the Crusade. Almost immediately after his coronation, he began raising an enormous amount of money to fund his expedition to the Holy Land. He sold off sheriffdoms, castles, titles and lands. He famously quipped that he would have sold London itself if he could find a buyer. For Richard, England was less a kingdom to be nurtured and more a treasure chest to finance his holy war. He liquidated assets, levied heavy taxes, and set sail for the Third Crusade in 1190, leaving his kingdom's administration in the hands of others. The Third Crusade is where the legend of the Lionheart was truly forged. He joined forces with other European leaders, most notably King Philip II of France. Richard's journey was eventful even before he reached the Holy Land. He conquered Sicily and then Cyprus, adding the island to his personal domains. Once he arrived, his impact was immediate. He was a brilliant tactician and an inspiring, if often arrogant, leader. His military genius was instrumental in the capture of the crucial port city of Acre after a long and brutal siege. It was during this campaign that his famous rivalry with the great Muslim leader Saladin began. The two were formidable opponents, masters of war and strategy, but they also shared a strange chivalrous respect for one another. There are tales of Saladin sending fresh fruit and snow to cool a feverish Richard, and of Richard offering to knight Saladin's brother. Their conflict was a clash of titans, defining the era. Richard won several key victories, most famously at the Battle of Arsuf, where his discipline and leadership shattered Saladin's forces. However, despite his successes, he never managed to recapture the ultimate prize, Jerusalem. Twice he marched his army to within sight of the Holy City, but logistical problems and dwindling manpower forced him to turn back. Eventually, Richard negotiated a truce with Saladin. The agreement allowed Christian pilgrims safe passage to Jerusalem, even though the city remained under Muslim control. It wasn't the total victory he had dreamed of, but it was a pragmatic end to a grueling campaign. With the crusade over, Richard began the perilous journey home in 1192, and this is where his story takes another dramatic turn. Shipwrecked in the Adriatic, Richard tried to travel overland through Central Europe in disguise. But a king like Richard, tall, imposing, and accustomed to command, was not easily disguised. He was captured near Vienna by Duke Leopold of Austria, an enemy he had made during the siege of Acre by disrespectfully tearing down his banner. Leopold then handed him over to the Holy Roman Emperor Henry VI, who demanded an exorbitant ransom for his release. A staggering 150,000 marks, which was several times the annual income of the English crown. Back in England, the kingdom was in turmoil. Richard's younger brother, John, was scheming to seize the throne, supported by King Philip of France, Richard's supposed ally. The ransom demand was a crushing blow to the English people, who were taxed to their absolute limit to free a king they barely knew. It was Richard's formidable mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, then in her 70s, who tirelessly worked to raise the money and secure her favourite son's release. After more than a year in captivity, the ransom was paid, and the Lionheart was finally free. He made a brief triumphant return to England in 1194, primarily to reassert his authority and put his brother John back in his place. He was crowned a second time, a symbolic act to wash away the shame of his imprisonment. But his stay was short. Within weeks he was gone again, heading back to France to deal with his true priority, defending his continental lands from the ambitions of King Philip. The final 5 years of Richard's life were spent in near-constant warfare in France. He was a king at home on the battlefield, not in the council chamber. He constructed the mighty Château Gaillard in Normandy, a masterpiece of military architecture to defend his territories. It was here in 1199, during the siege of a minor, insignificant castle called Chalus-Chabrol, that the legend came to an end. While inspecting the siege works without his full armor, Richard was struck in the shoulder by a crossbow bolt fired by a lone defender. The wound itself wasn't immediately fatal, but it soon became infected with gangrene. As he lay dying, the Lionheart showed a final act of chivalry. He ordered the crossbowman who shot him to be brought before him. The man, a boy by some accounts, declared he had sought revenge for Richard, killing his father and brothers. Instead of executing him, Richard forgave him, ordered him to be set free, and even gave him a sum of money. It was a final, legendary gesture. However, after Richard died, one of his captains had the crossbowman flayed alive and hanged. Richard the Lionheart died on April 6, 1199, at the age of 41. He had reigned for 10 years, but had spent less than 6 months of that time in England. So how do we judge Richard the Lionheart? As a military commander, he was undoubtedly one of the greatest of his age. Brave, charismatic, and a tactical genius, his exploits on the Crusade cemented his place in legend as the epitome of the chivalric warrior king. But as a king of England, his record is far more questionable. He saw the country primarily as a source of funds for his foreign adventures. His absenteeism and crippling taxes placed a huge burden on his people. He neglected the duties of domestic governance, leaving a power vacuum that his brother John was all too eager to fill, leading to the instability that would later result in Magna Carta. Ultimately, Richard was a product of his time, a French prince, a crusader, and a warrior first, an English king a distant second. His story is a powerful reminder that the glittering legends of history often hide a more complicated and sometimes less flattering truth. He was the Lionheart, a title earned through incredible courage and ferocity in battle, but he was a lion who rarely set foot in his own kingdom. What do you think? Was Richard a hero, a negligent king, or something in between? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more deep dives into history's most fascinating characters. We'll see you in the next one.